Please come back to me. Don't bury us deep.
So, what I want to know about you first is your like inspirations and influences in music, like from a really young age, like kind of what was surrounding you in music when you were little.
My first CD ever was Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill.
Awesome.
Which, looking back, still a great album. What a breakup album. But outside of that, I mean, you know, a lot of male influence, which, you know, I only kind of started picking up on in recent years as I became to be an adult, realizing that a lot of my kind of serious music love was a lot of men, and then once I started getting into electronic music, particularly so, people like James Blake, Radiohead's electronic kind of stuff, Flying Lotus,
That's been coming up a lot with a lot of chicks that I've been talking to, being just talking about their influences, and I go, well, were there any women? Because they'll start like naming all these guys and bands with guys in them, and they're like, it's just that's all we really have. There isn't much visibility for women. But.
Yeah, absolutely. You really have to seek it out, which I do now. Yeah, which is great.
Cool.
I kind of made a promise to myself at the start of this year that I would not kind of go out of my way to like download any men's music, and so. But it's interesting just how it creeps in. Like I keep looking through my like Apple Music playlist, and I'm like, fuck, how did that happen? It's all men again. But I do make a big effort now, and I have a lot of good like women and gender non-conforming artists in my kind of playlist, and I'm DJing on Friday night and doing all those kind of artists.
Wicked.
Bangers.
That's awesome. Yeah, because like I kind of find that too. Like I'll go, I'm gonna drive and listen to some music, and I'll chuck on like one of my favorite bands, and it'll be a guys band. But since I've kind of started this blog, like being more aware of women in music, where I was saying to Moses last night that it's almost gotten to the point where like if I go watch a guy's band play now something, I'm actually kind of like judging them from the perspective that we would usually be judged on.
It's very uncomfortable, I think, I guess that's the process of like a journey of like feminism, is kind of uncovering all of this stuff that is normalized and naturalized, and the fact that like you would see an all-male band, you know, potentially your whole life if you weren't really tuned into that stuff and never really question it. Whereas now, when I see all-male bands, I'm very impatient, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, cool, so you're doing the same thing that has been done forever, and like you haven't made an attempt to destabilize, and I have a problem with that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, totally. Because you've got two guys in Huntley with you, right? How have you, like, do they kind of just embrace like the women, like feminism in music as well?
Yeah,
or are they...
absolutely. They're really good allies, and I guess like their, you know, gender identity isn't quite as simple as it doesn't really feel like we're two cis straight. Well, we're not two cis straight guys with one queer woman. So yeah, it's kind of a bit more complex than that in our project, but certainly, you know, they have lived with male privilege their whole lives, and they're pretty good at recognizing that and being called out. It's definitely like a process of, you know, when I say like, you know, when you use that phrase, it makes it sound like you automatically know more than me, and I'm, you know, I'll just kind of make those kinds of calls, and generally, if one of them doesn't get it, the other one will. And
then they can work it out amongst themselves. Yeah. So what actually inspired you to get into music? Like, how young were you when you started like wanting to be a performer and a writer?
Yeah, I was pretty young. I was always singing and playing, and actually when I played the flute in high school and kind of was doing all the like classical music stuff, but then I loved singing jazz, and I went on to study jazz vocal, like a jazz vocal degree, and it was then that I started playing piano, because I didn't want to be like the kind of woman singer.
Token singer.
Yeah,
Our token
especially
role.
especially in the jazz environment where there are so many, where the women are predominantly singers.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's absolutely not to like undermine their strength and power doing that, because I think that's incredible. But I wanted to, you know, be able to accompany myself, and so I started playing keys, and then that's when I kind of started songwriting. And then I guess as I got more into exploring, the gender stuff became more of a problem, and I felt myself pulling out of the jazz world because it's just such a like boys club.
Yeah, so when you say problem, were there kind of like specific experiences that were just ridiculous, or?
Just realizing, just starting to tune in and realize like everyone, the only women here are singers, and they're treated like decoration. And you know, part of me wants to change that and kind of interrupt those those kinds of narratives, but the other part of me was like, fuck it, I'll just get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you found like a similar vibe doing like the music that you do with Huntley now, or have you found that to be just a more welcoming environment in general?
I mean, in Melbourne, there's a great scene, particularly around, really supportive feminist scene, because of Listen.
Yeah.
So there's definitely being more efforts made, and that's really important. But as I was saying before, like as you kind of go up to the top, like, you know, when people are like, oh, you sound like James Blake, or, I mean, Little Dragon is probably another like kind of influence, and there's a woman in that band, but that's one of our only people that will get likened to, that are, you know, bigger acts which actually have a woman in them. But then again, other acts in Melbourne that are not all male acts, that will get like, that we really look up to, and there are like, you know, bands like the Harpoons and Friendships and Habits, who are both here, and there's incredible music for us even to look up to just in Melbourne.
Yeah. I've been to Melbourne a couple of times. I'm always really impressed with the scene there, like the diversity of the scene, and how friendly everyone is when you go to a gig. Like I don't know if there's been any experiences you've had like living there where you go to a gig and there is actually just, you know, total sexism or just like fucked up dudes doing shitty things, but I haven't really ever experienced that in that city. Yeah,
there's definitely a movement against that.
Yeah.
I'm part of a club night called Cool Room, and we have, it's like techno music, but there's a priority for DJs, like non-male DJs, so we've got a lot of women and a lot of queer people, and trans and gender non-conforming DJs who from internationally and locally who get booked, and then the space is kind of deliberately set up to be a safe space. So I'm one of the safety coordinators, along with others, and it's basically set up so that people can approach us if they're ever made to feel uncomfortable, which in venues and like at gigs, that kinds of thing has just gone on since forever, and it's kind of been left unquestioned, and so there's a real movement to change that in Melbourne.
Awesome. And also I'd like to know, just talk about your role with Listen. So what do you do with Listen?
Well, Listen is fantastic because it's quite open. You know, if you want to get involved and use your skills, you can. So I started going along to meetings a bit over a year ago, and have since then been involved in booking. I've booked a few Listen parties with a focus on women and GNC acts, and the biggest project thus far is probably our conference, which is happening in October.
Cool.
And Chloe and I are coordinating that with a bunch of people, and so we've got keynote speakers and lots of panels, as well as live showcases at night.
Awesome.
Kind of similar to here at Big Sound, but with a focus on feminist thought. So there's panels from, like, I'm moderating a panel with speaking with school-aged feminists in music, and safer spaces, and we will probably talk about.
That sounds fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and lastly, just what's next for you and your music with Huntley? Are you guys putting out like recording time soon?
Yeah. So we released our debut EP this year. It's called Feel Better or Stop Trying. And
That's a cool name.
yeah. So we are actually going to follow it up pretty quickly with another couple of tracks. We've finished recording another couple of tracks, and we're going to be putting them out before the end of the year.
Sweet.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of festivals that we're playing over the summer, and yeah, I think we've got a big summer ahead, and I guess looking towards an album for next year.
Awesome.
As exhausting as that sounds.
Now, I have a wee gift for you, but Jessica, do you have dietary requirements? Are you vegan or anything like that?
I'm not. I'm vegetarian, but
Okay.
I assume these cupcakes don't have meat in them. Oh my god, it's a cunt cake.
You get to select your favourite wee one.
Oh wow, I'm in heaven.
Aren't they beautiful?
They are incredible. Okay. Oh, I'll take this one. Oh my god.
Do you mind if we film you kind of like just hoeing into it?
Like, it's my favourite thing to do.
Write you out, think I'm gonna write you out, think I'm gonna write you out.